Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to your Investment Dominator live Q&A call. And again, I'm Warren Davis, and it's good to be back here with you on a beautiful Monday. This is the 18th of November. I tell you, we are close to Turkey Day, just 10 days away. And we wanted to be here this evening, answer your questions, and hopefully move you along in your businesses. Hopefully everybody's had a great week. We had a very busy week. It's been really over a week since we've had a broadcast. So it is definitely good to be back. And hopefully, if I could get a quick sound check, hopefully everybody can hear me and you can see my screen and it says LPG deal flow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate that. Y'all are such nice, wonderful people. I appreciate getting a chance to work with you. I'm glad to be back here. And like I say, we had a busy week, but we had a very, very good week, very profitable week. And we are going to share some information with you. Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Share some information with you and hopefully get your questions answered as quickly as we possibly can. Do want to announce something here, just so that you're all aware. We're going to do our best, of course, to get your questions answered today. If we don't get to them today, because we already have some questions coming in, and we've already had some questions come in. If we don't get them to them today, we definitely will have them answered by Thursday's call. Just wanted you to keep in mind that we have really now 3 levels of individuals that are represented on these calls at this time. The first type of individual is individuals that have already gone through the 2-day workshop, 2-day maximizer workshop that we just had this past week. But they took it back in September. So if you're on the call and you took that class back in September, you've probably done, you're further along the deal flow process. And so a lot of those questions may be at a little higher level. Then we have individuals that just took the 2-day workshop last Thursday and Friday on the 14th and 15th. So they've had, basically the weekend, and they're, maybe working to implement some of what they learned from being in the 2-day workshop on the 14th and 15th. And we sure did appreciate being able to see all of the ones that were there. We had a great turnout and worked well. But that's the second type of person that's on the call with us tonight. And then the final type of person that's on the call is an individual who has not taken the 2-day workshop at all. They basically have started to maybe become a little bit familiar with the Investment Dominator. And obviously those questions may be at an even, a more, should we say, beginner level. And we want to welcome all individuals that have questions to, feel free to put in their questions, because all questions are good and they will help you further your business process. So I did want to start with one example, which I'm going to put it in the form of a question, but it's really more of an information. And that particular piece of information I'm talking about has to do with in our LPG deal flow. You notice that it's up right now. When we get to the point where we actually, you've mailed your offers out, you've gotten I accept your offer, you open escrow, you do your detailed research, then you market that property, and finally you sell the property or you get a signed agreement with someone. Now, I'm speaking this particular aspect of the deal flow I'm talking about when we do seller financing. And I've heard various schools of thought on this, that when you do seller financing, some individuals have chosen to, once they get that down payment and they get that signed contract, they put their land in the buyer's name. Now, our company has chosen not to do it that way. And according to what we learned in what Jack has taught over many years, and I've heard our coach, taught us, is that you basically keep that land in your name. Because you never know what's going to happen in someone's life. And we just had a situation come up over the weekend with a piece of land. You know, things just happen in, you know, as life progresses and as people deal in life, and they come up with issues. But we had this piece of property that is sold. I mean, we paid basically, I think we paid $4,000 or $5,000, maybe $4,700 or something for this particular parcel of land in a really nice area, but we sold it. We sold it for a little over 15 grand, and we sold it on seller financing. So this individual has been making payments, you know, over the past months, and you know they've been very faithful with their payments. They're on time, and I happen to know that it's a young man, and his, you know, he just got married, so he and his wife were trying to get a plot of land where they could build a home, and he was all excited, and he came up with his down payment, and he's been making the payments. Well, as it's turned out, he got a really great deal on a townhome, and he's decided, okay, well, they can't afford both the land and the townhome. Well, he has a signed contract with us, and he's been making his payments. And so basically, according to our business model, we kept this property in our name. We did not put it in his name. And as it turns out, he can't make the payments anymore. So now, you know, we're talking with him about, you know, what kind of monies he's going to have refunded to him. And, you know, we could actually play hardball. I mean, you know, if we wanted to, I mean, because he has a signed contract with us, we could even keep his money. But we're not going to do that. This is a young man. And I remember when I was a young man, just starting out, you know, I wanted somebody to treat me fairly. So in any case, we've decided to, you know, refund his money, you know, minus any service fees that we've incurred. And so he'll get a nice, you know, piece of money back, because he's been making payments on this money for, I would say, a little over 8 months. And so we're gonna refund him his money back, and then we're just basically gonna move on in life, and we could resell this land even if we wanted to. But the main thing I'm pointing out here is why you don't put the land in the buyer's name. Some folks are choosing to do that because they don't want to incur the liability. And no, we did. Oh, that's a good question, Teresa. You know, did we do a land contract with the guy to keep it in our name? No, we did not. We did not. We just specified on the contract that he was signing, the seller, we did what we call a lease purchase agreement. So we designate on that lease purchase agreement that the land, first of all, he can't do any building on the land. All he can do is clear the land. That's the only thing we allow someone to do who has, you know, land that's still in our name. We'll allow him to clear it or clean it up, but we won't allow him to do any building. And so it specifies in our contract that land is going to remain in our name until such time he has paid all of his payments, and we don't relinquish that. So we don't have to go through, you know, having to foreclose on anything. We don't have to get lawyers, you know, because once people get on land and especially put it in their name, they're probably going to build on it. They might settle on it. They might put a trailer on it, and all of that we would have to go through legal ramifications in order to get that person off of our property, because they hadn't finished paying for it. So now it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's going to take his money. We're going to consider the contract null and void. He'll get his refund. We then will go on and be able to market this property again and actually to, you know, sell the property. But that's the reason why we follow this business model. And I'm going to encourage all of you that if you're going to do seller financing deals, to follow the business model that's already been put in place. And this is a perfect reason. Now, I want you to know, in the last years that we've been in this business, this is the first time this has ever happened with any of our our seller financing deals. So this is not something that happens often. So I don't want you to be nervous that, you know, it is going to happen to you if you get into, you know, seller financing deals. You know, life does come at people, and we we know that, you know, it does happen, and this is the reason why, you know, Jack has put it in place that you keep that land in your name, and then you don't have a problem when it comes time, should it come time to nullify the contract. Okay. Good question. And so now we'll get on to more of a investment dominator type question, so that we can move on here. Okay, so one of the questions that we had that came in, and we have quite a few coming in today. We have a question that even we ran into over the weekend, and a lot of individuals are seeing. I tell you, it just feels like it's been a long time since we have been on this webinar, but so glad that so many of you are in the room with us tonight. There's the question we've been getting is, okay, let me set it up for you a little bit. So individuals have been importing, you know, into the Investment Dominator, and some of you may be in this situation, have been importing, you know, like thousands of records. You know, some people have had, you know, they're fortunate enough that they can get access to thousands of records at a time. So even over the weekend, we met a couple of folks that had, you know, just literally thousands of records, you know, 15,000 or 18,000 records that have been moved into the Investment Dominator, all in prospect status. If you can see my screen here, my Investment Dominator screen, they're all in prospect status. Well, obviously, they don't want to send out, you know, 15,000 records. So the question to me is, well, okay, Warren, you know, how do we manage basically these records that, you know, we only want to send, you know, maybe 250 to 300 or 350 records out a week, and how do we keep our other prospect records intact? And so I'm just going to give you a real quick high level how you might handle that if you have had, you know, you've imported many records into the system, because our advice is that you only import in prospect status the records that you're going to process that week. Now, you know, one thing you can do is you could delete that import if you wanted to do, and I think I've shown you how to do that. Or if you can go back and in the user guide, search how do I delete imports, and it will tell you how to do that. But for those of you that have the records in there and you're only going to process so many at a time, I want you to keep in mind that Investment Dominator does put in these unique record identifiers, which identifies each record individually, each land record individually. So if you're in that ballpark or in that place where you've got thousands of records in, let's say you only want to deal with, you know, 250 of them at a time, you can look over here, you can get the 250 that you want to send out, and all you do is get the record, the record IDs, and you'd come up and you would search by property ID range. Now, for the benefit of this particular exercise, I'm just going to say I'm going to take records 266 through 287. Well, I'm going to take 266. Let's see, I might have some that are in another status. So I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. Let's see how far back they go. 263. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to take 260 through 269. Okay, so just, we're going to pretend like I'm taking, you know, 500 records here. So I would select that. I would search on those, that property ID range. Oh, great. Okay, must have almost timed out on me here. Okay, property ID range 260 through 269. Okay, so we're pretending like if I was going to go shoot for 500 records. So you can see the records that it returns. And these are all, you know, my prospect records, which is what I want. And I'm going to hit select all. Now remember, select all is going to just select the records based on my last search. And my last search selected only certain ID range. So that's just one page, as you can see. So now for you, it might be 500 records you're going to select at a time. And in this case, what you want to do, if you're using letterprinting.net, you want to send these records to letterprinting.net, which is your mail house. In this case, at this level, you want to do an export. And remember, you do the level here, the lower level export, because you've selected records. You don't mess with this export up top here because these are bulk level commands based on status. If you did this export, it's going to export every single prospect record based on the status. You only want to deal with this export level here. So what I would do is I would export this file, and it's going to create a .csv, just like you see here, right? And this is the actual file. I would save it accordingly. I would save it, but it's going to create a .csv, comma delimited file, which is what you need to send to letterprinting.net. If I were to, along with, okay, so I'm going to export the file. I'm going to send the .csv along with my letter, and I'm just generating so you can see this templates. I'm going to send my neutral letter template and my generate envelope template. So that's how I would deal with those records. And then when I went back to the land deals, so I'm going to have to do my search again. Property ID range 260 to 269. So we're just pretending that I'm got all these records, so I'm going to do a select all. I export them, and remember the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my status from prospect to the mailed letter 1. And when I confirm this move and I move these to mail letter 1, obviously all of these records go to mailed letter 1, and then the only thing left in my system would be the new prospect records that I have not processed yet. And so you have to go back basically, and you have to do that each week so that you can manage all of the records that are in your Investment Dominator account. Now, obviously, if I'm going to print these out, I'm going to, and again, I'll select 260 to 269, and I'm going to say search, and I'm going to select all. So obviously, if I'm printing these myself and I'm not using letterprinting.net, I go into the generate documents at this level, generate documents, and here are all of my prospect letters that I would just print out, you know, to my own printer. So if you're a person doing your own printing, and we have several people that are doing that, you just generate documents at that level, and you can still manage all these thousands of records. And then the last thing you do is change the status, and you're good to go. Okay? So hopefully that will be helpful to someone that is in that particular situation and wants to deal with their records in-house. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna take a Gene, I'm gonna come back to your question. I see your question there. I'm gonna come back to that. And that's an importing question. Let me see. I might take it now before I go on. Well, let me go on and try to answer that, Gene. Okay, what would cause? Said you had 158 rows. that have not been imported. Okay, probably Investment Dominator gave you back the reasons. When you have continuously checked with the proper way to use the proper headers. Okay, you're stuck. Well, it gave you a list of records that did not get imported, and it should have given you reasons associated with each of those records. If you can remember, one of the things I shared with you, Investment Dominator has different reasons why it will not process successfully, records. And I'm going to see if I can get you an example here real quick so that we can look at this. I have no idea why yours did not process. I would have to really look at your data file in order to see that. But let's just say I open up a record here. So I'm importing these records. Now remember, if you import records where the last name is missing, even though there's a first name, or if you try to import records where it has individual, remember we have 11 fields here, at least 11 fields that are required. Okay, the headers could be correct. I'm not saying you didn't get any headers correct, Gene, but what could be happening is it could be data missing. I'm not sure if you use Agent Pro 247. One of the things that can happen with Agent Pro 247 quite frequently for some reason is that there's oftentimes, they have the first name and the last name, but the actual address, the seller's address is missing. Completely blank. So if that happens, Investment Dominator would kick those records out. So what I would have to actually do is once you do your import into Investment Dominator, come on back here, import, and you choose the file and you say upload list. Investment Dominator would give you a reason why all of those records were not processed properly. So, okay, so it's saying empty first name. So that's the wrong one there. That's the reason. If you're specifying individual, which you probably are, and their first name is missing, that's the reason Investment Dominator. That's a lot of records though. It says empty first name. That's a lot of records. So what I recommend, what I recommend is that you go through each column and make sure, okay, you're saying that's what it says, but it's not true. Okay, well, all I could do on that one is to actually look at your data, Gene, and see exactly what your data looks like. I know. I'm definitely not saying you're not telling it straight. I believe you are. I just know that Investment Dominator, and that could be some of the reason why it's saying that it's missing that record. The best way, let's see, how do you get that record to me? Best way to get that data to me, the data is to go into Investment Dominator under help here and create a new support ticket. And you can basically say here, Warren on webinar, and specify the Monday, 5 p.m. and put the date that we had we had this webinar, and just say, something like, please send the attached import. I really like to see that import file to Warren for analysis. Okay, and just put that you received, 158. It's like 158 records, rows that did not import, and just specify, what the error message you got. Let me know the following, please. Is the platform that you're using, computer, PC, or a mobile device, or exactly how you imported the browser that you were using? Were you using Chrome or Firefox or Internet Explorer? And then here you can actually attach that file from your computer. So just say choose file and attach that file to this ticket, and then say create new ticket. And that should get to me, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out what happened, and we'll get that answered for you, Gene. Hopefully if it gets to me by Wednesday time frame, or even tomorrow time frame, we'll be able to get that answered. Okay. Yep, still got some questions coming in here. Good questions. You're very welcome. It's my pleasure, Dean. We'll figure it out. We'll find out what's going on with that. Okay. Another very good question here. How do I pull? Let's see. Did we get that one? Let's see. Okay. All right. How do I pull information regarding why people would move to specific areas? Okay, this is more of a business question. We'll get an answer. This came in even over our last 2-day workshop. Let's see, how to pull info regarding why people move to specific areas. And this is coming from Joanne. And you might have, I don't recognize that name from the 2-day workshop. So you might have learned or heard about, see, how can I acquire positive information for listings or for ads? So that's part of the question. So how do you pull information regarding why people move to a specific area? This also can help you in your county. If those of you that are selecting your counties that you're going to be going after, how to acquire positive information for listings or ads? And I'm going to recommend that you use something, use a site called areavibes.com. And we showed this in the 2-day workshop. Areavibes.com. So this is a really, really good site, a great site for finding out specific facts about, a particular area that you might be thinking about going to. If you're doing your county selections, you might think about using this site to figure out why would people want to move to this particular area. So if I say in here, I think there's different ways you can sort, but if I say Denver, Colorado, and I select Denver, let's say that's someplace I'm thinking about actually going after, or I want to have an idea, why would people actually move to Denver? So as you can see, the first location, or the first result is Denver location, and then has other nearby results as well. But this is basically, it gives you answers on the livability of a particular area. Why would people want to live there? And so using areavibes.com and just typing in the state and the city, or the city and the state, and then you come into see details. Okay, see details. And what's really cool about this is that it talks about your livability, different reasons why, how easy is it to live in this particular area. And you see it defaults to looking at real estate, and it talks about the amenities, and that's specifically what I'm going to focus on here is your amenities. But it also talks about cost of living. It'll go into crime, employment, housing, schools, and what the weather's like. And I have lived in Aurora, Colorado for several years, so I can tell you a lot of snow. A lot of you probably know that. But anyway, I focus on these amenities. If I want to get various information, so I clicked on amenities, and then I'm going to say load the amenities map. And as you can see, there's a map that will come up that will tell you all about the restaurants, where it's good to get groceries. Like here's one here, and I just left click on that, and it talks about a tortilla factory, Spinelli's Market, and just different markets that, Costco. It talks about different areas and different types of food places where you can buy food, and it's all in this areas map. So I could also just click on, restaurants if I just want to see all the restaurants. And I can click on groceries if I want to see all the grocery markets and coffee places and what kind of shopping is available in this particular area. If I want to look at entertainment, what kind of places can I look at for entertainment? And definitely, of course, very important is medical. Where can I get medical? So this talks about the amenities of this place. This gives you an idea why people would be moving to living in Denver. It also gives you a lot of information if you're in the process of putting a listing together. It talks a lot about why someone would move to this particular area. So this is just a site that I wanted to make sure that you get a chance to look at best neighborhoods in and around the Denver area. So it can tell you specific neighborhoods that people would want to live in. And if you happen to be selling property and, on the outskirts of Denver, this would be something that someone would be interested in knowing, especially when it came down to, what kind of crime is going on in this place. So anyway, obviously you don't want to put that in an ad, talking about, any bad crimes going on, but you definitely want to be knowledgeable yourself about how an area is and what is in that area, what's employment like. So anyway, remember areavibes.com, a really good area, really good site to look at. Okay, back more to the Investment Dominator. Okay, good question here regarding even skip tracing. And let's see, Joan, how do I send out, so how do I send out all of my records that need to be skip traced? Okay, and skip trace, and basically, how do you send them out in bulk? Very good question, and one that, when I first got into business, I didn't really understand even really what skip tracing was. I'd never heard of it before I got into the land business. And basically, as you send out these prospect letters and they have certain addresses associated with them, either through letterprinting.net or you send them out yourself, these letters will come back to you saying, return to sender, the address, either they updated the address. A lot of times, if you send it first class through a company like letterprinting.net, or if you send it first class mail, you will get the return mail of any prospect records that didn't reach their address because the owner has a different address. So you want to skip trace those, or you want to mark those skip traced when they're returned to you, or you can have a VA to go in. We actually had a VA we work with that will go in and do skip tracing for us and determine the records that need to be skip traced. And remember, each of the records have an owner ID on them, which I'm editing the record corresponds. The owner's ID here corresponds to that reference ID that they should find on their letter, right? Corresponds with every owner. So they can simply, the person doing your skip tracing can simply come in here and type in, the owner's ID or the letter of reference number. And if they say, 20, and they do that search, up will come every piece of land that this particular person owns and all the information about them. And all they have to do then now is change, they can do a select all here even at this level because it's based on the search, and go in and change the status. Okay, I have to select some of these. Okay, so if they select these records, they now can go in and change the status from prospect to skip trace. And when they confirm that move, which I'm going to do that at this point, but because I have some other records that are already in skip trace status. So once they've put those records into skip trace status, it's very simple to batch them all out at one time. So let's say I wanted to get all of my records in skip trace status. And I encourage you to save these records up over a period of time to where they, at least if you're going to use a batch skip tracing service, like one is called batchskiptracing.com. If you're going to use that service, let's see. Okay, I want to open up another file. Okay. All right, so this particular file here, this particular service, batchskiptracing.com, is a service that will actually, you can use to do skip tracing. And I think their cutoff number is, you have to have at least 50 records that they're going to skip trace. So they'll either skip trace, put any of those in skip trace status. They will skip trace these records for you, or you can have a VA to come in and skip trace your records. So the thing is, how do you do this in bulk? So I just called up all my records in skip trace status, right? And my next step is I'm going to do a select all. So I'm going to select all these records. So if you have at least 50 records, it'll select all of them at one time. And I'm simply going to do just like I was going to do before. I'm going to do export at this level. And once I hit export, it's going to move these records, all that are in skip trace status here, to a CSV file. And all of them will be unique. And at this point, after I move these records to skip trace status and I have my output file, this is the file, that's the file I could export to batchskiptracing.com, or I can send it to my VA, have them go in now and find those addresses. All right. So now, once those records have been skip traced and they've got the right addresses in here, obviously, what you want to do then is you want to import them back into Investment Dominator. Now remember, the fact that they have been changed now, remember, they have to be in Investment Dominator format. So when you're bringing them back into Investment Dominator, obviously they have to have all of the right headings. That you can't just send back the same CSV file that you sent out, even though your VA is going to update them. You have to put them back in this particular order, with these headings, type, first name, last name, company, etc. And obviously all of these records would have, let's see, yep, there we go. All of them would have all of their information back into the record, and it would be in this format. And then what would you do? You would simply import them back into Investment Dominator. Okay, so all in process. I would then come back, I would import them at this level. I'm going to import all these records, but now the difference here, see how it defaults to create new records? You're going to say update existing records, because what have we changed? We changed address information. And remember, updating existing records, it says selecting the update existing records option if the system finds a matching property record that is already in the system based on the APN, property, state, and property county fields. It will update the owner's contact information for that record, as well as append any new property information included in your import file. So this is how you want to make sure that all of those owners who previously had incorrect addresses, this is the way you're going to make sure they get updated in the system. If you don't check this and you still have create new records, Investment Dominator is going to bypass all of those records that you had created or you had updated by your VA or by the skip tracing service, you know, batchskiptracing.com. Investment Dominator will just, you know, basically go by all those records, and none of them will be updated in the system. So very important that you change it to updating existing records. You're then going to choose your file, and of course you're going to keep it in the prospect status, so you don't change anything else there. And you choose your file and you upload your list, and then Investment Dominator will update all of these records that are in that have been changed. And by the way, you know, we've had the question several times, how do I correct certain errors? You know, let's just say that in Don's case, where he finds out there's, you know, some records that actually are missing information. So if I put in, you know, a record, or I put in a file in the Investment Dominator, it didn't have last name, maybe some of them didn't have a first name, right? And Investment Dominator, you know, kicked all those records out. Well, when I go back a second time and I put in the last name, or I put back in the first name into Investment Dominator, I'm going to save my file. I can import this very same file back into Investment Dominator, and the only difference is I'm going to choose update existing records. So, you know, how do you fix errors from previous imports? The way you fix your errors is you use the update existing records portion of the system and re-import those records again. And then Investment Dominator will definitely update all of your records successfully, and those records will have now the current addresses, and then you can of course send them out and hopefully get some good deals. Okay. All right, so that's another import question. Assessor. Okay. Okay, we have I think more of a business question, but we're gonna see if we can hit it real quick here from Michael. And he said, buying a list buying a list with values. Okay, I got that question. I think I understand what you're asking, Michael. With values from 5,000 to 100K or 100,000 from the assessor, Investment Dominator shows 0. Okay, and Michael, the reason why that is because you're basically, it's like if you're buying the list from a list service, you're giving the assessor parameters for them to go into their database and pull records based on a particular value, right? And they'll give you records back based on those values. Now, unless you then come into Investment Dominator, and I'm just going to type in import. Remember, Investment Dominator is looking for specific fields for it to update its records appropriately. So, if you don't put in the assessed value, if you put it in this particular field and you call it assessed value, but the same record that you got from the assessor, whatever that value is in that field, you have to use the assessed value field that spelled just like this, capital ASSESSED space value, VALUE. And if you input it here, Investment Dominator then will bring that in and consider that an actual field and will update it appropriately in the Investment Dominator database. But just because the assessor has a value on that property and greater than 1 or greater than 0, so it's got some value in there. If it's not called this same field, and I'd say 99% of the time, the assessor has a different field name for that value. But basically, if it's not called the same thing the Investment Dominator calls it, it will not be updated in the Investment Dominator. So, and it could be imported, but it won't go anywhere basically. Investment Dominator, we just won't do anything with that field because it doesn't mean anything to it. So I'm hoping that that answers that question on for you. I'm going to attempt here. You're quite welcome. We're going to attempt here to demo something for you. And wow, I'm getting down to where I've got right about, I should be able to get through this. We had a question that came in from Ben, and it requires a demo. Oh, good, Michael. I'm glad that I got there. Okay, a way to create. This question came up. This is something we demoed in the 2-day Investment Dominator workshop, or I should say Maximizer workshop. Okay, we demoed this, but it was kind of a fast demo, and a lot of folks were kind of getting lost. But basically, it's how we would go in and create a 3D image, 3-dimensional image in the Investment Dominator and bring it into some place where we could, mark it up. And we used Google Maps, and we also used Sketch.io in our example. So I'm gonna record this, and I probably may end up creating an article on this particular function because a lot of people want to be able to do it, but they kind of got lost as we went through the example. So let's just say I'm going to go into Google Maps, and I'm going to look at a parcel that is, I've got a specific one in mind here. So I'm going to find this parcel, in Lillington, North Carolina. As Google Maps finds this parcel, the whole idea is to be able to create a three-dimensional photo of this picture and bring it actually into Investment Dominator. And that's what we were able to demo this at the workshop, but I'm going to go through it a little bit slower here so that we can get it. So the idea now is this is the parcel 543 Mount Olive Church Road, and we want to basically outline this particular parcel so that we can bring it in a picture form. So all I'm doing, I'm starting on one corner of the parcel. I'm right-clicking. So I'm starting on that parcel, I'm right-clicking, and comes down to measure distance. Okay? All right. So now I'm hoping it's going to cooperate with me here. Measure distance. So it starts there. Now, all you do is go to the next corner and left-click. So I started out right-clicking. Now I'm left-clicking, and it's going to measure the distance. So I go to the next corner. I left-click again. It measures that distance. Come to the next corner. I left-click. And come to the next corner. I left-click. This is also a way you can find out the square foot of a particular parcel. Left-click again. And finally, I left-click all the way around. So now, as you can see, I have lines around my parcel. So I'm going to come over here, then I'm going to hit the satellite view. And as you can see, my lines come up here on the satellite view. And in order to go three-dimensional, I'm going to come over here to the right, and I'm going to tilt this view. So it tilts just like that. Now, if I want to tilt it more, I'm just going to hold down the Shift key on my particular mouse. Okay. All right. I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to hold down Shift key, and I'm pushing with my mouse upward, or if I want to get more of a tilt, I can tilt this, but I get more of a three-dimensional view of this particular parcel. Now, as you can see, I actually don't want to copy this and send this out to put this in my photos like this, but I want to be able to mark the lines after getting a three-dimensional picture here. So hopefully I can get through this here real quickly. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up, I'm going to bring this into what we call Sketch.io, which is another drawing tool. Sketch.io/Sketchpad. All right. So I'm bringing it into Sketch.io, and in order to do that, I'm going to, let's see, one of the first things I'm going to do here, I'm going to do an Alt Print Screen. Now, I'm doing Alt Print Screen because that's how, on my particular computer, I can do a screen print. You need to figure out on your computer how you can do a screen print, but I'm going to screen print this entire page, and I'm doing that by doing a Alt and a Print Screen. Okay, so then I want to get back to my Sketch.io place. Okay, so then I come in here, and all I'm doing is I'm doing a Control and V, which is Control Victor. So your Control key and V, and it brings that picture into this particular location. I'm going to select the Select tool here because I want to be able to move this around. So I'm selecting that, and I'm going to copy this in, right? So I've got my first shot of this particular parcel. Now I go back to my original drawing, and that doesn't matter because I'm going to get rid of all of these measurement lines. I just take that off. And I'm going to do an alt print screen again. I'm going to get another picture of this particular parcel without all the measurement lines, right? Go back into Sketch.io, and I'm going to do a Control V again, Control Victor, and as you can see, it brings that second screenshot in. And I'm going to select it here. Okay, and I'm running out of time. Here. But basically, I'm going to bring this in, and I'm going to put it on top of that particular photo. So both of them are in Sketch.io, and so my next step is I want to arrange my layers, because these are both in layers. So I want to come up here to the layers, and I'm basically going to take this first clip art and I'm going to just drag it. I'm left clicking and dragging it down below the second one. Okay, so now that's and this, as you can see, this was the first one I had, which has my measurement lines. All right, so I drag and I bring that down under there, and I want to use I'm going to use some tools here. I want to draw some red lines around the base of this here. So I'm going to use this calligraphy, and under calligraphy I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to use my lines. So, but the first thing I want to do though is I want to make sure my outline is a nice red color, and of course I don't want my line that big, I don't want my line that fat. So I'm going to make my line a little bit, yeah, something like that there. And then I'm going to choose my line tool. All right, and I'm going to come over here, and all I'm doing is left clicking on each corner so I can draw that nice red line. And do this kind of quick so that we can get this done. So okay, so I've drawn my line around there, and this gives me an outline. So what's my next step here? Okay, with the red lines drawn, now then I go back into my layers again, and I believe I can drag this second clip art down underneath the first clip art. All right, so here, as you can see, it's a little, I want to have a little more thicker line than that, but you can see now I have my 3D image that I've drawn my nice red lines around. And that's basically, so now I would take a screenshot of this particular, I'd use some, either I could use my drawing tool. I have what they call a clipping tool that allows me and it's somewhere around here. Here it is. That allows me to actually take a screenshot of just the area, or you can use Jing. So I've got this clip art tool that basically gives me a snapshot of that, or you can use Jing. If you have Jing on your computer, remember we have Jing, you can just left click, it creates your crosshairs, you come up here in the left corner and you bring it down, and basically then you capture that image. So that's how you actually want to, make a 3D, and you can draw your nice lines around it. You can, using Jing, you can bring in different text or, pointers, different arrows, and you can make, boxes that can show people exactly, this parcel, and you can make it look real fancy that if you're a creative type person. That's not exactly my forte, but in any case, I just want to let you know how you can do a 3D image. And like I say, I'm going to take this and put this, probably make an actual article of this, because a lot of folks wanted to do this and they weren't able to do it in the 2-day workshop. Thank you everybody for being on this call today, and I wanted to leave you with a thought. People who succeed have momentum. The more they succeed, the more they want to succeed, and the more they find a way to succeed. Similarly, when someone is failing, the tendency is to get on a downward spiral that can even become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you are people of success, so I'm really pointing to you succeeding. The more you succeed, the more you'll want to succeed, and the more you find a way to succeed. So keep moving forward. That quote, by the way, came from Tony Robbins. And we just want to say happy Monday to you, and hope you have a great remainder of your week. And we'll be back here Thursday, 12 noon, to answer some more of your questions. Take care, everybody. Bye now.